Well. We have the NBA Finals happening right now, and with that is always going to be controversy when the Boston Celtics are in the middle of it. People just hate Boston. It is what it is. We're one of the most winningest franchises apart from the Lakers. But screw the Lakers. Now, in recent times, there is this annoying Jayson Tatum discourse. Tatum is, for some reason, being one of the most slandered players for absolutely no reason. Now, granted, there are things that Jayson Tatum absolutely deserves flack for, but the stuff that's happening right now is absurd. And I'm here to talk about it just because, I've been supporting the Celtics since, what? How many years ago was that? 8 years ago? And I've seen, when Jayson Tatum was a rookie, I've seen Brown play. I remember the team when they're fielding Jared Solinger on my team. So I've been here for a while. And I think that it's just plainly absurd that, there's this huge discourse about, Jaylen Brown being a better player and Tatum being this, choker, this guy with no aura, whatever. Now, let me talk about this Jaylen Brown thing first. No, Jaylen Brown is not a better player than Tatum. It's a thing that happened because Kid just brings it up in an interview, and people are going crazy about it because they're like, yeah, he's right. Look at what Tatum did game one. Guys, Tatum has been leading this team in, all the major statistical categories up until, I think the conference finals or something. And in the conference finals, he averaged 30, 10, and 6. Now, going further than that, if you go into the game, Tatum is generally treated as the best player, so he demands the most amount of defensive attention from the paint and with the perimeter. You see him constantly getting double teamed. The Mavs did this, and whenever that happens, Brown is able to cook because he's 1-on-1. Porzingis was able to cook because he got onto them 1-on-1. His teammates are open because he gets doubled. And, that happens all the time. And watching the Celtics play just in the past couple of years, I cannot stress how many times when the offense gets stagnant, usually the player that's off the court is Jayson Tatum. Because Brown can't play make. He just can't. He's a scorer. He's a great scorer. He puts his head down and he can, take shots that, sometimes I don't think even Tatum can make. But he can't control the game like Tatum does. He can't play make. And, I don't understand why there is this discourse when we literally saw last year when Tatum went down with an ankle injury. What did Brown do in that game? Exactly. Now, I will say this. At best, Tatum is probably number 5 in the world. He's not going to be better than Jokic. He's not going to be better than Giannis. He's not going to be better than Luka. And when healthy, he's not better than Embiid. He's not better than, maybe even Shea, right? But I'm going to say this, and I think a lot of people like to be super extreme on Tatum. Tatum is not that far off from them. Yes, Luka is an A+, student, basically. He is, he might be a number 1 point guard of all time if he keeps this up. There is that possibility. Jokic has potential to be a top 10 player of all time. He has that potential. I don't know if I see the same potential in Tatum necessarily, but that doesn't mean that Tatum is this dog rat player that people make him out to be. There's the difference from an A student and an A- student. Yes, we have this one guy that's just wow, an ultra genius. What can we do? But Tatum's also a very great player. Both of these things can be true at once. And even if Tatum is not necessarily a top 5 player, I still think that he's super, super important to the Boston Celtics. So, the way that I would describe Tatum, this might be really funny, is that he's like the Michael Jordan of Tobias Harris's. Now, I'm not meaning to say this as an insult. I really do like Tatum as a player. But the idea is that, Tatum is not elite in the same way Luka is elite. in any one field of his game. Like with Luka, you can say like, oh, his playmaking is probably like number 1 or number 2 in the world. For anything that Tatum does, I don't think he's a top 3 in anything. He's not a top 3 defender. He's not a top 3 playmaker. He's not a top 3 scorer. He's not a top 3. Yeah, like all across the board. He's not going to be top 3, but he's no matter what going to be like probably like top 10, top 15 at everything. So even when Tatum has these dud games, he's still so good at the other stuff and is very consistent at it that he's always almost a net positive no matter how bad his like scoring game is. You'll see, this is pretty important, especially when, building a team and all that stuff, and just how the Celtics play out when Tatum isn't necessarily playing like that. And note this, I guess the way I would categorize Tatum is like he's a jack of all trades. And a jack of all trades, as they say, is a master of none, but oftentimes is better than a master of one. Now, let me dive into this for a little bit. Because of his build and versatility, like he's very tall. I think he's 6'10", maybe even 6'11". If you like see when he stands next to like Al Horford, he's also versatile, and it's because of this that it's just Boston's able to have this elite defense that they've had almost every year since they've kind of transformed this team like personnel. If you look at this 2024 Boston Celtics team, what is their defensive weakness? Where is it? The only weakness they have is their center position when they have a super, like the opposing team has a super, super strong center like Jokic that can just bully somebody like Porzingis or Al Horford. That's the only weakness that the Celtics have in terms of their defense. And that's the reason why if they were playing the Nuggets right now, I'd be like scared out of my mind because Jokic can do that. But any other team besides the Nuggets, and I don't know, whatever team that has a super dominant center, like the 76ers maybe if they had a better personnel, there's no weakness on this team. And a lot of that is because JT himself is so versatile. In this game against the Mavs, game 1, I'm about to talk about just his game in general. He's able to switch onto the centers, like Lively, Gafford, and he guards them like pretty much as if he were like an actual center. He's switchable. He can guard the guards. He can guard like these centers. He can guard like pretty much everyone. And because of that ability, and because he doesn't have a weak defensive game, you can build an extremely, extremely strong defense around him. It's the reason why Boston has been able to, beat Giannis. There's a reason why they've been able to smash the 76ers every time they play them. There's a reason why they made it to the 2022 finals, because of this defense. And it's because that Tatum is so big, he's so good at the defensive end, he doesn't get credit for it as much. That's the reason why you could build around them in that way. The other thing is his rebounding is really, really good. I believe the Mavs are a very good offensive rebounding team, but if you watch the game, like Tatum was killing it on the boards that night. He like averages like almost a double-double like every other game. Like he does his job when it comes to grabbing boards. And that's really important because frankly, a lot of the people or players on the Boston Celtics are not necessarily the best rebounders. They've had a rebounding issue a lot of the times. And Tatum being really good at that is very helpful. Rebounds do matter, yes. I will say that with players like Jokic and Luka, who aren't necessarily considered like these elite defenders, a lot of their defensive weaknesses are able to be covered by a good defensive unit. You can hide these guys like as the Mavs have done in the past like 2 series. And they're also so good offensively that like it pretty much makes their defense like whatever. Like who cares about how good their defense is? And it's not like Jokic, Luka are like traffic cone defenders, right? So it's the reason why like even if Tatum is a better quote unquote all around player, he's not better than them because they're so elite on the offensive end in an era where offense really, really matters a lot more. So yeah. Um, Now going past this defense, Tatum is also improved a lot as a playmaker. When you saw him go into the 2022 finals, Redick, LeBron, they've had this podcast, they've talked about it. Boston's issue was they didn't have the basketball IQ. The reads that Tatum has now is much faster, and it's the reason why the Celtics are doing so much better right now, is because he's able to read the defense a lot better. Unfortunately, game one didn't always show this, but there were instances. And because of that, he can control the offense. And people are going to be like, oh, but Boston's so ISO heavy, right? Well, they get assists, they get threes up, because usually when you double a player, they can swing it around and then they'll get a shot in. And Tatum won't get credited for that. There's no like hockey assist tracker, but he does generate a lot of these points. A player like Jaylen Brown can't do the same thing at that same level. Remember what happened in Game 7 of last year against the Heat. If I pull this Game 7, Heat versus Celtics, what happened? Tatum goes down in like probably the first play of the game, and Jaylen Brown scores 19 points. He almost got outscored by Derek White as the first option on that team. That is abysmal. And if you like see his stats for this game, 8 for 23, 1 for 9 from 3. 8 turnovers, 5 personal fouls. Does that sound like a guy that's able to lead the offense by themselves? Tatum was hurt, mind you. He was hurt. So it was Brown's, it was Brown's team to kind of lead at that point. And, he didn't have a good game. I know a lot of people last year were like, like this guy is a fraud. Like they should be looking to move on from him, break up the Jays, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't on that camp. No, Brown is a great number 2 option. You pay him 100 times. For sure you do. Like it was a disappointing way to go, but in an instance like this, you have to. Now remember, the game that Brown laid was a stinker. It was horrible. There were talks all about Brown. Like, does he deserve this contract? Should we pay him this biggest contract in NBA history? It was that bad. And suddenly we're just like, Jaylen Brown is the best player on the Celtics. He is the most important player. Like, what is this? Jaylen Brown, yes, is a great player. Don't get me wrong. But he's not the same guy as Tatum. There's a reason why he couldn't play against the Heat when it really mattered. It was Game 7. There's no more important game. Like, if they win that, they go into the finals against Denver. And who knows how they do. Maybe Denver still wins, but, at least you got to the finals. Now, going past a little from just, how Brown performed, I feel that a lot of basketball discourse forgets that basketball is a team sport. You are fielding 5 players at one time. Social media has like this super toxic idea that like, somebody needs to be like a Michael Jordan, LeBron James, like whatever, right? No, the only thing that matters is winning. No one player is able to win a championship by just themselves. I think Michael Jordan is the GOAT. Michael Jordan was not able to win jack until Scottie Pippen and co came in because Jordan had literally no help. He was literally the best player in the series all the time. You see the same thing with Luka Doncic. The same people that believe Luka is this like my glorious king Luka and will dunk on Tatum. Like, bro, look at what happened. Luka has not been able to have this playoff success because his teams have been dog water in the past couple years. I mean, okay, they're not dog water. Like, he's had Porzingis, he's had Brunson, he's had, fairly good players where I think, sometimes he's underachieved. But you see that. He was, when Lucas had players that were not very good on his roster. It's the same thing that happened with LeBron in 2007. Like, how are you going to beat that Spurs team? Like, yes, LeBron didn't play well, but who's on that roster? How is the 2018 Cavaliers going to beat the Warriors? Right? It's a team sport. Your 4 other players matter. No player, once again, has been able to win without a good supporting cast. MJ has Pippen. LeBron has had Bosh Wade, Ray Allen, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love. Like, he's had good players on this team. He's had Anthony Davis. He's always had a top 10 player next to him. And a good supporting cast. Because Tatum's floor is so good, because he's so, he's like an A minus in everything that he does. It allows him to be really easily built off of. Like, you don't have to worry about certain weaknesses because Tatum doesn't really have a super glaring weakness. Like, you can argue clutch, but I think clutch is one of the easier things to handle, because I mean, if you just get Jokic and Jamal, right? They go to Jamal even though Jokic is the better player. The same way Kobe would be the clutch player when Shaq is clearly the better player, right? So that's maybe the only minor thing where I think that's ridiculous too, because I don't think Tatum is this unclutch player that people say. But anyways, Tatum is able to be easily built off of. He's not going to get targeted on D because he's a good defender. He's able to guard centers. He's able to make. He's able to score when he needs to. You don't also have to worry about egos. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. You don't have to worry about him chucking your team out by just overshooting. You don't have to worry about Tatum off the ball either. He's not a Harden where you need to always have the ball on him. Otherwise, he's a pretty useless player, right? He takes care of rebounding too. So it's easy to build off of him. I don't think people realize that, being able to be built off of is also important. The reason why Embiid is not able to win is because he's never there. And that's the next thing I'm about to talk about. Tatum never gets injured. He's played so many games. And that's the reason why, in terms of sheer basketball, yes, Embiid is objectively the better player. But who cares if Embiid is not playing on your playoff game? It's true. You can be a 20 times MVP if you don't play a single game in the postseason. You're useless. You need to be able to get your players that are your most best players on the court when it matters most. And Tatum doesn't get injured, and that's why he's so reliable. And that's something that, people need to give him credit for. It's the reason why I think LeBron is so great, because he's always there. He never gets injured. Up until, I guess, 2020 or something. It's the reason why I respect players like LeBron and Giannis so much. They don't get injured. They're the Iron Man. They're just able to tank through. They're always going to be there. LeBron's not missing a playoff game. Jayson Tatum has played through injury, the 22 finals. Now, he didn't play well, but, he'll tough it out. Now, going past all this, I'm going to talk a little bit about now Game 1. There's a lot of people saying a bunch of stuff about JT. It's funny because the Boston Celtics absolutely dog-whooped the Mavericks. They spanked them. I was watching this with my friends. They were all cheering for the Mavs. I'm the only Celtics fan there. And, the look they gave me after Boston completely uninstalled them from the map in Game 1. I wish I took a picture. But instead of talking about, oh, look at KP, look at what a difference maker Porzingis makes. Or, wow, are the Mavericks just outmatched? No, it has to be about Jayson Tatum is not anywhere close to how good we think he is. He's not even the best player on his own team. What? People are just trying to make up drama at this point. I'll give you this. JT was not that good in terms of his turnovers. And he, wasn't the same player that he was like a game ago in the playoffs. It's true. But now I want to ask everybody a question. Let's say you are in a championship game, whether it be, I don't know, high school or, college even, or some like club thing, AAU, whatever you call it. Let's say you're in the finals, state finals, whatever it is. You're quote unquote the best player on your roster, but your teammate starts 8 for 8 on the field. Your other teammate is bombing threes. You guys are up. What are you going to do? Are you going to be like, oh, I see. Well, I'm supposed to be the best player, so I'm going to just shoot shots and just... Or are you going to, feed the people that are actually doing well? Like, brother, if I'm in that person's shoes, I don't care if I'm the best player, I am feeding that guy. I will hand deliver, go pay, like, here comes the airplane, and give them the rock. They are going to shoot that thing 100 times over until that person cools off. That's exactly what JT did. If your teammates are cooking, which is what's happening with Boston, Kristaps Porzingis was an absolute unit. He is the unicorn. If you're having that sort of game from your teammates, why are you trying to take shots and give the ball over to the team if you just clank it? Why? There are games where these superstar players that we always talk about get carried by their team sometimes. There was JJ Redick talked about this when he was referring to like bad games. Michael Jordan did not play good in a playoff game. Yeah, that's happened before. Shocker. He laid a dud, and Scottie Pippen took the load for him. He went off. I forgot what conference finals it was. Maybe it was in 1998. I don't have it pulled up, but there are Curry in Game 7 of the 2016 finals did not play well. Draymond Green absolutely outperformed him. In these instances, why not just defer to the player that's just doing good? Like, bad games are bound to happen, and it's a team sport. You're trying to win. If your teammate is cooking, why not just be like, here you go, just sauce this guy? Like, do we just want Tatum to just force things? No, it's a terrible thing to do. That's not winning basketball. That's a Will Chamberlain thing to do. People want JT to be this hyper-scoring do-it-all man when he doesn't really need to. Like, people will use this against him because, like, in Boston, he doesn't have to, like, carry as much as Luka Doncic does. Boo-hoo. Why are you going to fault him when he makes the better decision in the circumstance that he has? I don't care where you are. The only purpose in basketball is to win. Right? What's the point of winning all of these accolades, all these awards, if you don't even get to win? Like, what's the point? Like, okay, maybe secure the bag. If that's you, then go for it. But, me personally, I like winning. I really do. The goal of basketball is to win. You play for a championship every season. It's not to rack up this stat sheet. If that was the case, then Jayson Tatum should have shot 30 shots last night and tried to go for 50 points if he could have. Doesn't matter whether his team wins or loses, right? No, basketball is a team sport. There's a reason why Jayson Tatum has been able to achieve so much in his career, even though he's actually pretty young. He's only 26 now? And, I'm just going to say this, but in some of the conference finals, when he was a rookie, for example, in, was it 2018? Jayson Tatum was the best player on the Celtics court, and they didn't defer to him. They let Terry Rozier shoot, Marcus Smart shoot, Jaylen Brown shoot, and they were a clank bucket. And Jayson Tatum was playing out of his mind that game. He was their leading scorer, I think. And he was their best player. right? What if he had more opportunities to be fed, right? Feed the hot hand. Do what's working for you. Stop deferring just because you think, right? Now I'm going to wrap this up. And I'd just like to say this. I love Jaylen Brown too. Brown is an absolutely amazing player. And like I said, after that whole Game 7 thing happened, I know a bunch of people were on this Jaylen Brown like hate train. I was not one of them. I thought Jaylen Brown absolutely deserves another contract. Why are you going to break things up when you literally are perennial conference finals appearance, like always making it to the conference finals, made it to an NBA finals? Why would you change that? Brown's great. Like, don't get me wrong. I think there are aspects where he definitively is better than Jayson Tatum at. Like, in the game against Indiana, game 1, when Brown took that shot, like he double clutched it and just shot it, that's not a shot Tatum can make. Like, Tatum's weakness is the fact that his shot is super, like, it's kind of like almost awkward in a little way. Like, he takes a long time to shoot, and it's not that strong when he's being contested from 3, which is the reason why he airballs a lot when he goes for one of these, like, step back threes. Brown can actually make those shots. That's why in some instances I do think that Brown should be taking the final shot in the game and not Jayson Tatum. Like, there are trade-offs here. Yes, Brown does have a lot of good things going for him. Brown is also, really good at feasting in the mid-range, going in, driving, elevating. He's an excellent slasher. But he's not the number one option on this team. No matter what, he's not. And, that's just the way the roster is constructed. But it's great because Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown are such an amazing duo that have been able to accomplish so much together. Like, I might think that Jayson Tatum deserved conference finals MVP, but Jaylen Brown equally deserved it. Like, whatever, let him have his flowers too. And I just hope that when going more into this like basketball discussion, that people stop, taking things to such an extreme. Brown can be a very, very good player. I would say that he was the second best, or maybe even the best player on the court in Game 1 of the finals. No, it wasn't Jayson Tatum. He's not being like Jayson Tatum was not the first or second best player. It was either Kristaps Porzingis or Jaylen Brown. But that doesn't mean that Jayson Tatum isn't an overall better player than Jaylen Brown. Anyways, that's just kind of what I wanted to say about this discourse. It's just interesting, just because I think so many people are kind of going at it in a very, they don't take the nuances of the game. They just try to simplify it so much to where it's either this or that, and I don't think basketball or anything is kind of like that. I do hope and I do wish that they take another game from the Mavs. Hopefully we take care of business. I think Boston's the better team. And yeah, I'm just happy that we have both the Jays. We have such a good roster this season. But let's chill on the Tatum disrespect.